first speaker is a multi-disciplinary designer based in Brooklyn, New York. So please welcome to the stage, Joe Hollier.
I sort of studied a more traditional graphic design program at the School of Visual Arts, but I got very interested in a variety of other mediums. In general, I guess I was just trying to stay very open and curious to whatever new opportunities might have come my way. When I got given the opportunity to be a part of Google's inaugural 30 Weeks Incubator, it's sort of this experiment in turning designers into technology founders through guidance and mentorship from their sort of crazy network of tech, design, business, and venture capital. And it was here in 30 weeks that I met my co-founder, Kai-Wei Tang. I joined this program not really knowing what it was that I wanted to build, sort of just on a curious whim, but I learned very quickly that the last thing I thought the world needed was another app. And I just didn't think that moving towards more connectedness would make us any happier. If how we spend our days is always connected, always staring at our screens, that would be how we spent the rest of our lives. And that was a little bit scary to me. We reached a point where reaching for a device became so natural that we start to forget there's a reason, a good reason, to sit still with our thoughts. These devices have become so psychologically powerful that they don't even change what we do, they change who we are. So I knew very early on that I wanted to do something radically different. I wanted to build products that helped people actually live in the moment and appreciate their time. The Lightphone is your phone away from phone. It's essentially a credit card-sized cell phone that only makes phone calls. It works with your existing phone, allowing you to comfortably disconnect. And it's actually designed to be used as little as possible. Because if we sort of look at the current state of technology and where everything's headed, everything everyone else is building is moving us towards more connectedness. So I saw that as a huge opportunity to build products that helped people disconnect and find that balance. But if the products we're building are things that we'll use a lot, get very addicted to, but not necessarily solving a need, it kind of was the opposite of the human-centered design process that we practice. Sort of in the beginning, we started with our user research, and we could feel that people were habitually overwhelmed. I think multitasking is a myth. It's sort of a glorified procrastination, and it was making us all really exhausted. Everyone we talked to was sort of craving escape. You could feel it, but no one was really disconnecting. And so we wanted to explore that. And this answer ended up being quite simple. The internet lives in our pocket, and this wasn't always the case. And our phones then become this sort of hole, answering a simple message can lead to 20 minutes of scrolling, and it happens almost unconsciously. So we knew that the solution that we wanted to make actually involved leaving the object, leaving the smartphone. So this was our sort of first original sketch we came out with. And the idea was that your smartphone would become a smart answering machine. You would be able to leave your smartphone at home. It would filter only the most important calls to you and sort of hold everything, all your other notifications at your house waiting for you, sort of like an answer machine of the past. So we had this hypothesis, people would enjoy disconnecting from their phone, but we wanted to test it. So we got some flip phones, and we started giving them to users, and we simulated the sort of call forwarding aspect with just simple on-off contacts that would trigger basic call forwarding. And we started to see what those results were. And something really interesting that happened was there was this initial anxiety that all of our users experienced. The act of leaving their smartphone at home was way stronger than they realized. Some people described it as phone separation anxiety. Some people said FOMO. Some people even said they felt physically different, like they had a different air about themselves. However uncomfortable this might have been, it always sort of translated or resolved into a huge relief as they sort of crossed the wall of FOMO and stopped caring about what might be happening or going on and actually felt present. But the other interesting thing that we learned was no one used our flip phones at all. And that taught us that the value didn't lie in our object and what our object was capable of doing, but the entire value was in the disconnecting, the lack of object. And the first thought was, how could we make this as invisible as possible? And so we started exploring credit cards and IDs. And we got all these little pieces of plastic cut out for us, and they're literally just white, blank pieces of plastic. And we started living with them to see what this form factor would be. And we kind of fell in love with these blank white pieces of plastic. And conceptually, it made a lot of sense to me. This device that's trying to take us away from screens shouldn't have a screen itself. And also, from a hardware perspective, The LEDs would consume very minimal battery, and it would allow us to get it as thin as I wanted it to be. Something to note is that the Lightphone is actually a standalone cell phone. Like I said before, we've made such a habit of checking our phones that we didn't want to give the user anything to check. So the phone will actually never do anything but tell the time and make a call. We knew we weren't inventing new technology. We're actually just taking technology that's existed for decades and simplifying it even more and giving it a new story. So we understood that the branding was going to be very important. And what we didn't want to do was make the users feel guilty or bad about having a smartphone, but instead we wanted to sort of celebrate these moments of life that we didn't need a smartphone. And we wanted to encourage people to disconnect, and we thought the object made that special in a way that an app never could. We had a team ready to go, we had a manufacturing plan, but we didn't know how we were going to make this a reality. So it's pretty amazing that we live in a world where there's something like Kickstarter. We were able to raise money, start to build an international community of backers, and open up a lot of new doors that might take the product even further than we ever imagined. Some of the things we learned in doing the Kickstarter campaign was just how big this problem was resonating. One of my favorite things that we learned was actually how many people wanted to use the Lightphone as their only phone. It put us in a sort of interesting dilemma as designers because the Lightphone, although it is a standalone phone, isn't designed to be a standalone phone. So it taught us a lot about curating and sort of staying focused to your main use case, which for us is phone away from phone. These were two questions that we got asked a lot, and what that sort of taught us is that people really know nothing about how manufacturing actually works. I mean, making a cell phone is such an insanely complex endeavor. The supply chains are so huge. They involve thousands, if not tens of thousands of people, hundreds of factories. There's just no way that a phone should ever cost $10 like people have suggested to us. Then on the other side, you know, as much as we wish we could make a fair trade phone, there's no way that the two of us could ever guarantee that entire supply chain that insane is fair trade. We always thought we were going to be 100% transparent about our process, but now we think that's even more of something we really want to push and sort of show what actually goes into making a phone, and hopefully that can start to change consumer habits. All in all, we're super excited to be moving forward full speed with the Lightphone. But I would like to step back quickly to wrap things up back to 1973 when the first cell phone was invented. And there was sort of a genius idea in the first cell phone, and that was for the first time ever, a phone number was going to represent a person. Before this, a phone number represented a place, like an office or a house. But you know, humans are mobile, we move around, and when we want to call someone, we usually want to call someone specific. So this was a very human-centered idea. And no one would argue that cell phones are a bad thing. I think everyone would agree that it makes sense that we all have cell phones on us at all times in 2015 because what if? But Marty Cooper, the man who invented the first cell phone, this is it, the Motorola Dynatec. What he says of modern cell phones is that if you try to build a device that does all things for all people, it won't do anything well. And we just kind of want to bring a little bit of that human back into technology. We want to give the user the option to consciously choose how they want to use technology on a daily basis, and we're just excited to be a part of that sort of bigger conversation. Thank you.